Thank you very much, Sandra, for the invitation and also, or mainly, for the good work that you have been doing all these years. We will hear a lot about the content of the project, but I would like, before, let's say, giving what I hope will be a helpful overview of where this project comes in European, let's say, legislation and initiatives against plastic litter. So before talking about that, I would like to highlight a very important characteristic of this project, that it managed, in my view, to link project work with policy development, which is not always the case. I can tell you I've been spending a lot of years in the European Commission, working with projects of various kinds, and also with policy development, and it's a rare, a lot of European taxpayers' money is going to these projects, and we do not always have, let's say, from the policy implementation point of view, the results that we would have liked. But this is a, if I may put it that way, a counterexample, and I would like to congratulate Sandra and the other project partners for that. And it's a counterexample in both ways, not, I mean, in two ways at least, not in terms only of European policy, but also in terms of regional policy, because we saw, and we will see also during this afternoon, that there's a strong, so to speak, OSPAR content in this project. And this is also very important, because it is not only about, let's say, the EU, it's also about OSPAR, and it is, last but not least, about the coordination of these two when it comes to marine environment policies. So I will not go into the details. You know probably that the new Commission, it's no longer so new, in 2019, introduced the European Green Deal, part of which is the Circular Economy Action Plan and the, let's say, the Zero Pollution Action Plan that we will see later on. And the European Strategy for Plastics comes under the, somehow under the circular economy, but of course it has pollution reduction aspects. Now, both the circular economy and Action Plan and the European Strategy for Plastics pre-existed the Green Deal, but they have been updated to take into account the, let's say, the developments of the Green Deal. So we now have a new Circular Economy Action Plan and all the follow-up actions for the European Strategy for Plastics. So circular economy is mainly about rational use of resources, let's say, saving of resources, energy and water, and also reducing environmental impact from the use. But it's not only about that, it is also about environmental impacts, as I said, and one of the major environmental impacts which have been highlighted recently is the presence and the impacts of microplastics. So there are several actions in this action plan concerning microplastics. Now, another, maybe the most important to date fallout of the European Strategy for Plastics is the Single-Use Plastics Directive. I will not go into details. You know, I believe, this directive, which was a front runner in many respects. So the idea is to, I mean, based on the monitoring data that we had from beaches, from OSPAR, and from the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. So on the basis of this data, we identified the most polluting plastic items, so to speak, and decided to tackle the problem at the source, that is to say, to take measures to reduce the presence of these single-use plastic products, either by banning when alternatives were available, or by labeling, or by other measures. I will not go into details. But I would really like to draw your attention to the last paragraph, because this directive has a requirement which is directly relevant for this project. And we could even say it has been influenced by this project to a certain extent, because these two processes went together, in parallel rather. So we have a very important provision for the banning of food and beverage containers made of EPS. Now, you know, and we know, and we will hear much about it later on, to which extent fishing activities are related to the use of EPS. And the Port Reception Facilities Directive, which is about the management of waste in ports, was also revised as part of the European Strategy for Plastics, and it was revised with a main aim to reduce the presence of marine litter. That is to say, to improve the waste delivery at ports, and also to, thereby to reduce the presence of litter at sea. And one of the ways to do that, to improve waste management at ports and increase the quantities of waste delivered at ports, was to include all fishing boats. Now, the scope of the Port Reception Facilities Directive has been modified, so all fishing boats now, and fishing ports, of course, are included, which is relevant for this project. And the other very important novelty is that this directive, in connection with the Single-Use Plastics Directive, creates a coherent whole in the sense that for the products covered by the Single-Use Plastics Directive, which are fishing products, because the Single-Use Plastics covers also fishing gear, so for many of these products, the extended producer responsibility is introduced. That is to say, the producers have to make sure to how shall I say, guarantee the financial viability of schemes to recover and recycle the products when they become end of life. And these funds could, let's say, go to port reception facilities, could go to port authorities, which of course need additional resources in order to organize the collection and recycling of fishing gear containing plastic or other plastic products related to fisheries. Now, as I said, the Zero Pollution Action Plan is part of the Green Deal. It has very concrete targets to be reached by 2030 for plastic litter and for microplastics. I will not go into details. I just want to highlight that, of course, for the achievement of these targets, the Marine Strategy Framework Directive will be instrumental, and they have been based mainly on the possibilities that this directive gives to member states in terms of monitoring, in terms of target setting, in terms of measures, but also, of course, these targets have been based to the Single-Use Plastic Directive, and we are doing our best to, let's say, improve the collaboration at regional level. We have, and we see that in OSPA, we have regional targets which are compatible with the Zero Pollution Action targets. And of course, the European Union, which is a contracting party to OSPA and to other regional sea conventions, supports the regional plans. Sandra explained earlier on the origin and the content of the OSPA action plan against marine litter. So the Commission supports in several ways the implementation of these plans, including by projects like this one. And I think it's worth keeping in mind that this project and another European project, Clean Atlantic, let's say, ensured the implementation of an important number of actions of the OSPA Regional Action Plan for Marine Litter. Now, this is not directly related to the project, but it is related in the sense that the framework for marine environment protection in the European Union is the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. And we have decided under this directive to put regulatory thresholds for the presence of litter. And this was, again, the first time that this happened worldwide. So we have, after a long discussion, and Sandra knows this discussion very well because she was directly involved and very helpful. So we have decided there should be no more than 20 items of litter per 100 meters of coastline. Now, this might be or might seem to some very ambitious. In some cases, it has already been achieved in some European marine regions or countries or beaches. But again, we need to work towards that. And of course, we have to see how this will be achieved through intermediate targets and also through taking into account the transboundary pollution, which is a very important aspect. Now, as I said, this is an ambitious but achievable objective. But in order to achieve it, we have decided to set intermediate measurable targets, and we have tried here, I will not go into details, to monitor the trends of marine litter on the basis of the data, of course, that the member states provide. So these data are still being analyzed, and we hope that in the end they will show a negative trend in terms of litter quantities. But as I said, this is still under analysis. Now, if you see the first line of this, because again, under the European legislation for the marine environment, we need to set regulatory thresholds, that is to say limits, which should not be exceeded, for a number of categories of litter, coast, bottom, seabed litter, and so on and so forth. This has been done, as we said, for the beach litter, and it's ongoing work for the rest. For some, let's say, compartments like the sea floor were quite advanced. We hope to have a baselines and threshold next year. It is difficult but necessary work. Now we come to areas which are closer to the project work. The packaging directive, which is under the revision. So I will not, because I'm afraid I have taken already too much time. I think this is going to be published tomorrow, the Commission communication on the biodegradable and bio-based plastics. So I will not say any details. I will save the surprise for tomorrow. This is also part of the, as you can see, the use of, let's say, recycled plastics in new products is being stimulated by a requirement to have a minimum quantity of recycled plastic in new products. Of course, this is not so easy to implement, because you have to, if you look at the top right, you have to agree how to measure, how to monitor this recycled content. But again, it's ongoing. Microplastics, there are two fronts here. Microplastics, which are directly introduced in products like cosmetics, paints, detergents, and so on. And these are going to be restricted. Some of them are going to be banned through the European legislation on chemicals, which is the REACH regulation, and other microplastics which are produced during the life cycle of products, like, for example, the plastic pellets, which is the raw material for all plastic products, textiles, and so on. So the unintentional, so to speak, microplastics, we are working on that as well. I hope that in the beginning of next year we'll have, let's say, Commission proposals. This remains to be seen. Again, this is an overview of what we, of course, the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive and its revision are very relevant for microplastics, because the idea is to include this emerging pollutant along with other emerging pollutants in the wastewater treatment, but not and now also to include in the wastewater treatment the stormwater management, which is stormwater is a very important carrier and vector of microplastics. Now, we should start with this one, which is it's not exactly a research project, but still I am sure that the scientific community has participated and has contributed and is very interested in this project. So we have now the new research program, Horizon Europe, with several novelties, one of which is the mission lighthouses. The missions to start with, and one of the missions is the protection, Now this is something that shouldn't happen. Okay. If I want to go up here. So one of the missions is about marine and freshwater ecosystems. Restore our oceans and waters. And you can see here there are three main pillars. I will not go into details, I don't need to read that. The reason why I put this and the next slide, which speaks about the regional hubs, the regional lighthouses, so to speak, of this mission, is to draw your attention to the opportunities that exist, because marine pollution and protection of marine biodiversity is a major theme in this mission. So, the Portuguese host mentioned in his intervention earlier today the groundbreaking UNEA resolution, United Nations Environment Assembly resolution about the plastic agreement. As we speak, the first major meeting takes place, I think, in Uruguay. Yes. So again, this is a very important development, a unique opportunity to reduce plastic pollution, but also let us not forget that this plastic pollution, because this resolution is about reducing all plastic pollution, including upstream production of plastic and so on and so forth. But we should never forget the link of the plastic pollution with the marine environment pollution, because this is how we became aware of that, to put it that way, and this is where everything ends up, unfortunately. All the plastic waste that is not collected on land ends at sea, and this is where we see it, or we don't see it, which is even worse, and this is where it creates most damage. Thank you.